Hello, this is Nick from Poised and Balanced Alexander Teacher. Thank you for coming by to watch this video. In this video I'm going to walk you and guide you through a sequence of very gentle, very healing restorative movements. And this exercise is brilliant if you've got, really achy back, lots of tension, compression in the body, neck and shoulder tension, and you're just generally feeling a little bit stiff and clunky. And if you practice this sequence regularly, in addition to the constructive rest, in addition to the principles and the skills that you're learning in the Alexander technique, I think it will really be beneficial. So we're using the elements of the ground, the gravity, the body's innate, amazing ability to heal and restore and rebalance itself given the healthy conditions, and your commitment to want to tune into this beautiful instrument and have it really work beautifully, so it really plays a good tune when you're using it, and you're going to avoid the inevitable future of being more clunky and stiff and achy and feeling discomfort in the body. So let's get into it and give yourself about 20 minutes, make sure there's no distractions and you're really showing up for yourself. You're making that appointment with yourself where you're tuning in deeply into your body so you feel more embodied and whole. Slowly. So I'm just going to go onto the mat. Even as we go down, we're going to think about giving those directions up through the body. So as I'm going down, I'm lengthening up through the body, thinking of the balance orientation of the head. So I'm just gently kneeling down. It's almost like a little lunge. Just kneeling down onto one knee. Head is still going up. I'm coming down onto my bottom. And then I'm going to just gently place the feet roughly hip width apart, looking at the feet. So the feet feel nicely planted. Heels about 12 inches away from the buttocks. If they're too far out, you'll find the feet are not fully planted on the floor. Using the hands to just gently lower yourself down, making sure you're breathing. And you need a little bit of support underneath the head. So the head isn't, you don't want the head tipping back. You don't want too much support underneath the head so the chin is pressing into the throat, so it's sort of blocking the windpipe, the airstream. So just gently, and you can place the hands on the back of your neck and just sweep along the back of the neck so your head is comfortably rested and you're encouraging the neck muscles to lengthen. And then you can just make any adjustments so you feel comfortable and you can just begin to settle in. The hands can be placed on the tummy, the hands can be placed, the arms can be placed on the floor, and you're thinking of them facing upwards. You're placing them so they're facing upwards. Take a couple of deep breaths, so it's a deep sigh of release. And just create an intention of how you'd like to show up. When I mean an intention, a way of being, like you can think of being calm, being present, being peaceful, being connected, being still. And so we're going to start the restorative sequence, and the first thing that we did was just gently rotate the head just to ensure there's no pressure, no restriction in that range of movement in the neck. And then we're going to gently walk the hands above the head. And so you're just working into the upper limbs, working into the shoulders. If you feel any tightness, any muscles pulling, you're just thinking of those shoulders opening, breathing into any tightness that you may experience in your shoulders. Thinking of the whole of your back lengthening and releasing down into the ground. So we're working with the gravity. Gravity is assisting us. We're working with the weight of the body. The body's just gently and slowly releasing into the ground. And it's almost like we've been magnetized towards the ground. So we've got the strong force coming up from the ground, and we've got the body's weight releasing down into the earth. And we're just giving ourselves permission to let ourselves go. And you might feel a little pull in the ribs, so we're just opening up the ribs, all those muscles around the ribs, around the cylinder of the torso. Taking a deep breath in through your nose, down through the throat. Breathing into the ribs, and you can feel the back of the ribs opening. The torso, the spine beginning to lengthen. Just notice that rise and fall, the contraction and expansion of the ribs. So we really want to bridge that gap between the mind and the body. So instead of the thinking being the primary focus, the body is our primary focus. We're building that intelligence, that sensory awareness of the body. So we become more attuned. We start to tune into this beautiful instrument, the human body. And we're just going to float the arms up towards the sky and just see if you can think of the shoulders, the back of the upper torso, the back of the shoulders melting down as your fingers and arms release up towards the sky. Thinking of being open in your heart center, and we're just going to gently rotate the arms. And what's driving that movement is the thumb and the little finger. And what you do is, it's almost like the little finger drives and guides the movement, and we're corkscrewing, so we're driving that movement right from the hands, right into the shoulders, right into the shoulder blades, into the shoulder joint. And that really releases lots of the compression and tension in the wrist, in the hands, in the arms. And you can just do a little bit of movement with the hands and the arms. And that lovely rotation movement. And then we're just going to give ourselves a hug. We're going to walk the fingers around to the shoulder blades. Thinking of the shoulder blades being drawn away from each other. You're drawing the shoulder blades away from each other. So widening across the upper back. Meanwhile, the feet, just thinking of the feet still being rooted and planted. The knees floating up towards the sky, the pelvis sinking down. Again, breathing deeply into the ribs, but more importantly, letting that breath go like that big sigh. It's like a big, long, fully expressed yawn. Well, you can do it a little bit more gently and quietly if you like. Then come back to that normal rhythm, your usual natural rhythm of breathing. And I'm just going to unfold the arms. Notice which one is on top. My right arm is on top, and I'm just going to rotate them again. And this time I'm just going to think of that rotation as I did the first time. That rotation is going right into the shoulders, releasing that tension, all that traffic that builds up in the wrists, all that tension that builds up in the hands and the shoulders. We're just having that sense of just that spiral movement. The body loves that spiral movement. The body loves spiral movements. We're going to be doing a few more spiral movements because we tend to move in a very linear way. So I'm crossing the arms the other way. This time the left arm is on top. Walking these fingers around to the shoulder blades, ensuring we're not tightening the neck muscles. The knees aren't falling inwards or outwards. Back is continuing to release and to lengthen. And you can just feel some of the impressions, the contact the back is making. Where do you notice the most weight falling into the back? Where do you notice the weight falling into the feet? Can you feel it into the inside ridges more, into the outside ridges? Can you feel any of the individual toes? Maybe just wiggle them so you're really present to your feet. You're really grounded and feel rooted and planted in your feet. Then we're just going to open up the arms like an expression of joy. And then we're just going to just gently let the arms go. And just try that a couple of times. So you're just
speaking to the muscles, and we're just asking them to let go. They're so used to being active, they're so used to being stimulated, to pushing, doing, and just stimulated. So what we're doing is asking those muscles to just completely switch off. It's like dropping all the shopping bags. Then we're going to draw the knees towards the chest, and I'm going to do it in such a way where I'm not going to tighten the neck muscles. I'm going to think of my facial muscles softening and releasing. You can think of your facial muscles softening and releasing, the eyes resting in the eye sockets. And just going to gently rock and massage the lower back. So just rocking from side to side. So just creating a little bit of ease and length in the lower back. The back takes on such heavy weight, it bears all the weight of the head and the upper torso. So we're just opening up space in between the vertebral bones, allowing those invertebral discs to replenish with the spinal fluid, allowing that chain of muscles to release in the back. You're thinking all those muscles that get tight and tense and knotted to begin to unravel. Then we can do a few little circles in the back. You're just placing the hands gently on the knees, and you can rock both ways. Then we can do some wider circles. So we're working into the ball and socket joint, the hip joint, releasing tension in the hip flexors and the leg muscles, these upper leg muscles here. The ball and socket joint loves that motion. That motion creates like a lotion in the joints. It's like putting synovial fluid, like oiling, lubricating the joints. And as we know, the body loves perpetual smooth movement. We're just rotating into those joints. So we just get a nice movement in that deep socket, hip socket. Then we're just going to place the knees over each other, and if you can, so we're just going into some inward rotation, and if you can just take hold of the lower legs, maybe the ankles, breathing into the lower back, breathing into the body, breathing into the hip. And if you experience any irritation, aches or pain, discomfort, just breathe into that area. If it's really pinching or hurting, just gently release out of whatever pose or whatever part of these exercises we're doing. You can just gently release out. Then we're just going to cross over and do the other side. So we're doing just going into internal rotation. And then we're just going to gently place the right ankle on the left thigh. And I'm just going to draw the knee in towards my chest. So again, we're working into these glutes, into these extensor muscles. These flexor muscles get really tight from sitting all day, and we get very locked in the hip joint. So just gently placing the hands on the knees and drawing the knee towards the chest as far as that will go, whatever movement is available to you. Then we're just going to extend that leg up. So you can hold the back of the leg, and you can just gently rotate the ankle and point and flex the foot. Now what we're doing here is we're just working in, and what I find is more effective, and it's easier just to have a little belt, a bathroom robe cord, and what I'm doing is just working into that deep chain of muscles that runs from the base of the skull all the way through the spine, and we continue that release right up into the hamstrings. So if you've got tight hamstrings and calf muscles and tight back, because normally the tight muscles in the leg will feed into the back, and the tight back muscles will feed into the legs, so that they both affect each other. So we want to get some length and release in the back and in the leg muscles. And what I'd like you to do is think of breathing in through your nose, down through the throat, and breathing into the leg muscles, So you're imagining that breath is rolling along the spine, all the way through the lower back, and you're imagining extending that breath up into the extremities, right up into the leg, right up into those tight hamstrings. And you want to feel a little bit of a biting point. So you want to feel a little bit of a burn, and when you feel that little biting point, you want to breathe into the area where you feel that little bit of a burn or bite in those muscles. And the body, if it feels like there's too much stress or tension from doing this exercise, you can just ease out of it. Or you can breathe more deeply into it, because if you breathe more deeply into it, that will tell the nervous system that you're safe and there's no impending danger or anything to fight or flight from. So it's a wonderful way of releasing the hamstrings. We're going to do the other side now. The left ankle on the right thigh, just gently working into the hip joint, both the hip joints. Works into the ankle, it's very dynamic, it's very deep. And just go as gently as you can. And we're still continuing to allow ourselves to sink into the earth, elongating the spine. I've got the head supported, that gives a little bit of traction through the neck. So we're getting that maximum length and expansion through the torso. So we're continuing to work. The primary focus is on continuing to work on through the spine and that extension through there. Then I'm going to, as I did with the right, as I did with the left, I'm going to do the right, just point and flex the foot. Just do a few rotational movements in the ankles, clockwise and anti-clockwise. And then I can use this rug just gently, or this belt rather, place that on the pad of the foot, the ball of the foot. You don't want to buckle the ankle inwards. So the ankle's pointing straight up towards the sky. And you can hold both arms, and you want to hold the belt in such a way that you're just widening in the shoulders, so you're not getting really tense in the shoulders, the expense of extending and releasing the back and the hamstrings. Breathing into the torso, so breath coming in through the nose, down through the throat. You're imagining that healing, nourishing, cleansing, soothing breath, helping to release any compression, tension in the body, helping to release and to lengthen those fibrous, tight, knotted muscles. So we're getting a little bit of, we're increasing the tonal quality. There's a nice tonal quality in the muscles. Breathing and lengthening. And then I'm just going to release that off so I can feel a nice stretch there. Going to bring the feet back. Going to bring the feet back onto the ground. And then I'm just going to bring actually all the feet together. So we're just going to go into a little bit more external rotation. You can hang up there for a bit. Let the knees just fall out. So using just the weight of the knees. You're not really pushing or doing anything, just allowing the knees to fall out. Then I'm going to bring the feet back together, and we're just going to gently, I'm going to place my hands back on the floor, and I'm just going to gently peel up. We're going to do a pelvic tilt. So a few pelvic tilts and bridges, peeling up the tailbone, the lower back, the upper back, moving right up through the spine. And you might get a little bit more leverage through the spine if you move the support away. So you can feel the whole of those natural curves of the spine start to move. And we're reversing those natural curves. The curve in the lower back, the thoracic spine, the curve in the neck. We're just gently releasing them. And I'm going to bring the feet a little bit closer towards the bottom so I can get a little bit more lift in the tailbone, the sacrum, the lower back, moving up through, all the way through the upper spine. And the spine loves these wave-like movements, these sort of undulating, oscillating movements. The spine doesn't like to be rigid and fixed. We want the spine to be flexible. We want to have these multiple planes of movement in the spine. So it's a really sprung, powerful part of our bodies, rather than one that's sort of rigid and brittle and not that flexible. So just releasing that back down. And it's like you're ironing the whole of the spine out along the ground. So we get that maximum length. The reason the feet are planted is because it engineers the spine in such a way where we get that maximum length. And now we're going to go into a spinal twist. I'm just going to hitch the hips over. And I'm just going to let the knees fall to the side. I can bring my little bit of support back underneath my head. I'm just going to let the head roll towards the right as my knees roll to the left, and I'm going to place my left hand on the right knee. And what I'm doing is just getting again that lovely spiral movement through the spine. So the spine loves this gentle twist through the spine. I'm going to breathe into the ribs, breathing particularly into the back of the ribs, because remember, most of the lung tissue is in the back of the back, as is the diaphragm. And all these are respiratory, they assist the optimal functioning of breathing, all these back muscles. So we want to mobilize the ribs, we want a little bit of movement, we want to mobilize the muscles in the back of the back. So those muscles aren't so sleepy, those ribs aren't so sleepy, there's a sort of dynamic, three-dimensional movement in the torso. And again, my jaw's releasing muscles, facial muscles softening. You can think of you can think of smiling. That always releases tension in the face. And I'm just going to do the opposite way. So just let the knees roll to the right as the head will roll to the left. You can think of breathing along the length of the spine, breathing into the torso, into the back muscles, into the ribs. Thinking of that expansion, that release. Just hanging out there for a bit. And you can try that a couple of times if you want to, just going from left to right. So you're just getting, that spine is used to that movement, that gentle, being able to, we want a little bit more torque in the spine. So when we go to twist and turn, we don't get a sudden pull in the spine. The spine is used to turning. It's used to releasing. So you can just try that a couple of times so you just get that movement there. Okay, then we're going to come back to where we started, back in constructive rest. This can be done in addition to the constructive rest. So make sure the two are completely separate. The constructive rest is the art of undoing and non-doing, and just allowing the ground and the gravity and the body's own innate intelligent healing system to bring itself back into balance. But we could add this additional restorative sequence of movements as like an add-on, something that we can accompany with the constructive rest. So normally I do the constructive rest, then after I go into that little sequence of movement. So we're just going to just gently roll over, and we're just going to finish the sequence just by coming up onto all fours. So the knees directly under the hips, the hands directly under the shoulders. So you're thinking that alignment through the spine, neck and head. And again, what we're doing is working with the proprioception, which is just the sense register of the body. And we're thinking of that alignment all the way through the spine, neck and head. And we're just going to just gently rock into the hip joint. And you can imagine like having like a happy puppy dog's tail. Or your bright-eyed and bushy tail, and you've just got this lovely movement in the pelvis, in the sacrum, right at the tailbone end of the spine. So just wiggling the hips and just gently rotating in the hips. And then we're just going to do a couple of classic cat stretches. So you're going to suck in the abdominal muscles, and you can engage the muscles, the pelvic diaphragm, which is the muscles between the anus and the genitals. So you're just scooping everything up, letting the head drop. And then you can just reverse that. As I'm doing this, my hands are really spreading, so the weight's dropping through the hands, through the heel of the hands. I'm really imagining my hands like starfish, so nicely spreading the hands. And then I'm just hammocking the back. Then I'm just going to do the cat stretch again, so sucking in the abdominals, drawing up the pelvic diaphragm. So it's those muscles that stop you peeing. It's like you're just gently engaging those muscles. And then we can just do the hammock again. So we're just hammocking the back, and you can maybe just pull it, you can just lift the head up a little bit, so you're just getting a little bit of movement there. Try not to put it too far back. Then we can just go into that cat stretch again. We're just completely letting the weight of the head go, and you're engaging the abdominal muscles, the pelvic floor muscles. So you're just sucking in all those muscles, even maybe clenching the buttocks a little bit. But what you really want to do is engage and lift the pelvic floor muscles, those muscles that stop you peeing. Then we're just going to come back into being neutral. We're just going to gently release down into that humble, healing, restorative pose. They call it the child pose in yoga. That really helps to release the tailbone down towards the heels, helps to create a little bit of space and opening in the lower back. Let the weight of the head be really rested and supported. Then you can just gently walk the hands round to the right, so you're just getting a little bit of lateral movement in the side of the ribs. Then we can walk the hands round to the other side. So just a little bit of a side bend. Again, we're using the gravity in the ground. And we can just walk the fingers right out in front, so we just get a nice stretch through the torso, opening up the ribs. So this is more of an active, rested child pose. And then I'm just going to just gently roll up through the spine, so into that C curve. And if that's available to you and you feel okay doing that, you can just roll up all the way through the spine. So we're going up from that C curve. When we're born, we have that one primary curve, and then as we start to push and yield and crawl, we start to develop the secondary curve. So you can see as I'm rolling up through the spine, I'm kind of coming up through the lumbar, the thoracic spine, which is the upper spine, all the way through the neck. And you can see I'm just rolling back through the spine. So it's that C curve, it's a lovely wave-like movement through the spine. If it feels a bit strenuous, you can just take it very slowly and easily, and you can see that my head comes up last. Then I'm just going to come back into that natural C, that natural alignment, so that crawling position. Crawling is a wonderful thing to do as well. We often do it in Alexander lessons, just to work with the cross flexors and the cross flexors of the arms and the legs, and get that cross pattern working. So we're just going to finish off the way we started, which is coming onto one knee, that little sort of kneeling lunge. And then I'm just going to brush the other foot forward. And that was the restorative sequence. It's really great for the body. It's really great for getting into those parts the Alexander can't, mobilizing those joints and freeing up the body, and just having the body work so it feels like it's working more in tune. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching, and keep practicing.